Hey everyone, it's Maribel Blue. Welcome to another Pathetically Unfiltered. If you are new here, welcome to this channel. I do news and reactions, and if you are not new, welcome back. So let's talk about our favorite person, Donald Trump. Someone that I haven't talked about in a long time because a lot of the content that I have been focusing on right now has been on Nolan Wells. I'm going to do another David D40 I forget how to pronounce his whole name. But anyway, Nancy Grace has been talking extensively about David and the murder of Celeste Rivas Hernandez and what happened with her. I want to do an update at some point with that. But today we're going to talk about Donald Trump. Now, there has been someone that I have been following called the Romano Report, and he talked a little bit about people who feel like they've been scammed in voting for Trump, and they're complaining about all of these things that Donald Trump had promised he was going to do. I mean, all of us knew none of that was ever going to happen, especially with the inception of Project 2025. We knew that was going to happen, but everything else in between was not going to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and share a little bit on the Romano Report, and then I'm going to share another video with MS Now of a person who started an organization called Leaving Maga. I actually contacted him, interested in doing an interview. I'm just having some trouble understanding how people were swindled in such a way. And reviewing their website, I mean, these people look like very smart people. I don't know what they saw in Donald Trump that they felt something different was going to happen this time around. I mean, yeah, something different is happening and not all good.
This article, Republicans see scary lack of enthusiasm among core voters ahead of midterms. And what do we have, like only like 100 days or so before the midterms? And I don't know obviously how this is going to turn out, and I don't want to count our chickens before they hatch or anything like this, but there are indications that this very well could end up being a bloodbath for Republicans. Fingers crossed on that. Anyway, I want to talk about some of the things that are in this article. Let's talk about this. Here's the big takeaway from this article. 20%, 1 in 5 of reliable base voters are at risk of staying home or voting for Democrats. That is according to this finding from surveys conducted by Americans for Prosperity PAC. Now, lest you think that this is some left-wing outfit just trying to make Republicans demoralized before the midterms, no. This is a PAC controlled by Charles Koch. Charles Koch of the Koch brothers. Yeah, so this is a full-on Republican operation. 20% of base voters. They're talking about the hardcore base of the Republican Party. And their findings are that 20% of base voters are at risk of staying home or voting for Democrats. Why? Because they're just demoralized. You know, they believed all the bullshit, and none of it has turned out. I mean, they were sold a bill of goods. It's unbelievable that they were stupid enough to believe any of it. In fact, let me read. Oh, did I close this out? No, I don't think I did. I want to read a passage from this article. It's so good that I actually just put it in my beach video update. I recorded a shorter video if you want to check that out. But I want to talk about this again because it's so fucking delicious. They're quoting a Trump voter in this Washington Post story, and he's demoralized. And he said this, quote, "We voted for Trump, and he did the opposite of what he said he was going to do. Gas prices were going to be $2. Food was going to be cheaper. Energy prices were going to be in half. We were going to get two rebate checks to the American people, and we weren't going to have any new wars, and we were going to build a wall and deport 30 million illegal aliens." And he did none of it.
How can anyone be upset over everything that he planned on not doing. When Project 2025 was brought into the light and everybody was like, oh shit, these people are insane. Look at this playbook they are putting together. Even Governor Walz had said, nobody puts a playbook together and not have intention of using it. And for some reason, everyone just fell in line with this cult mentality. You also have the grifters who are in play, trying to keep the flock in line. You see, it's frightening because you have all of these different little people who are influencers in one form or another and influencing other people. This is the route that they need to go in order to vote. And they believed it. They bothered to do no research whatsoever. They did not explore other news outlets because in their mind, the other news outlets are demons who are taking away their rights. Meanwhile, they voted in the actual demon who is slowly taking away rights. We have seen what has been going on since last year. You have people that are being held up in detention. They're not being shipped back to their country, wherever it is that they're from. No, they're being jailed. The monstrosity of the things that's happening right now. But everybody was worried about eggs. Now I'm going to go ahead and play this MSN Now video of these people who fell for all of the things Donald Trump supposedly promised them. Or I should say, supposedly was going to promise and didn't live out anything he was promising.
There are growing signs that President Trump's MAGA base is fracturing, with high-profile defections by former Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene and influencer Ashley St. Clair, and recent polling that indicates that the overall number of people who identify as Republican is shrinking. But for the diehard, leaving MAGA isn't easy. When you were a part of the MAGA movement, how deep were you?
I was as deep as anyone could have been. I was an aspiring MAGA pundit. I had bylines in places like Fox and The Federalist. I spoke at Trump groups. I was a donor on the campaign. I was unapologetically a MAGA and Trump supporter.
Rich Logus is the founder and CEO of Leaving Maga, a nonprofit for those disillusioned by the movement. The group, which Logus says is funded entirely by small donors, provides support groups, de-radicalization resources, and a platform for members to share their experiences.
After I left in 2022, I realized that because MAGA is a community itself, to leave, I thought that I should build a community for people who also decide to leave. When I left MAGA, I had nowhere to go.
To get a better understanding of what makes people leave MAGA, we heard from an array of the group's members.
I grew up really poor, so a lot of my friends' parents would be responsible for helping me get to prom or making sure I had, new shoes for school, and they were all MAGA. And it was very much this constant conversation of, if you want to have nice things, be a Republican. Look at what we have, look what we're doing for you. They say Republicans are cruel and heartless, but look, I'm taking care of you. If I was cruel and heartless, would I do that?
I really wanted acceptance with my father, and my father was very much into Fox News, so that was something that we would connect on.
I became heavily indoctrinated into trad wife culture. Household voting was something myself and my fellow trad wives in the church, we were all absolutely fine with household voting. And that
Right, so just to clarify, for people who don't know, household voting means the woman does not vote.
So the SAVE Act, in essence, is to take that right away from women.
In 2015 and 16, I felt that the two parties were the same, that democracy had failed most Americans, and that elected officials cared mostly about the wealthy and the powerful. And even though Trump ran as a Republican, I was very enticed by his outsider status.
From the timelines you've given me, you guys were all sort of on the MAGA train to some extent in 2020, right? At that point.
Yes.
When you heard Trump claim that the election had been stolen, were any of you like, yeah, they stole this election, Trump won?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Up until fairly recently, when I left MAGA, I did believe that the election was stolen. I believe that the riots were actually, those were patriots.
they stormed the Capitol, and I'm like, well, yeah, I guess this is what you got to do if you have a corrupt, election process happening.
Until I actually switched off Fox News and started getting my news from other places, my information, that's when it finally hit.
Diversifying their news turned out to be a common factor in leaving MAGA.
I met my now husband in 2021. He is a black man, and he saw a Trump flag on my profile, and he was like, hey, could you read White Fragility? I'd really love it if you would. And I did, and it was very interesting because I was terrified of that book up until that point. And I read it, and it wasn't even as scary as I thought it was going to be. And they made me watch a documentary on January 6th, and I didn't even know what happened on January 6th prior to the PBS documentary. And I looked at him and I said, Scott, did that really happen? And he was like, where have you been?
It's so hard for people, because I said, it's not that you're dumb, you were fooled. That's incredibly hard to admit.
We are in the United States of algorithms right now, and MAGA media is very efficacious, it's very effective, and it's very disciplined.
Stefania became disillusioned when MAGA beliefs clashed with her understanding of medical science.
When I really began to wake up was during COVID. Because as a trained respiratory therapist with 5 children, the mixed messaging was something that finally broke through the cognitive dissonance, because I was hearing, wear masks. No, don't. They don't stop respiratory viruses, when I very much knew that they did.
Stefania would be forced to return to her work in respiratory therapy in 2022, when her husband contracted long COVID and could no longer work.
It all felt very karmic, like I was experiencing the aftermath of things I had voted for, downplaying COVID only for it to then hit us.
It's not easy to believe something firmly and then come to the conclusion that you've been wrong for many years. Was that hard for you, just on a factual level, to say, oh, I believed things factually that I now realize were not true?
Yes, yeah. That was something that I just couldn't square, because I couldn't be wrong. Because I consider myself intelligent, knowledgeable. There was no way that I was wrong about it, and I held that belief for a long time.
I had believed that when Trump ran that he would be somebody who would be different as an outsider. I think that he was correct in pointing out a lot of the flaws of our political system. It just turned out, unfortunately, that he didn't try to solve those or remedy those ills, that he exacerbated them.
It's very hard to find ways to have empathy for these people. Like I said, I would love to have the opportunity to interview this guy who started this Leaving MAGA organization, because I want to better understand how someone gets so immersed with a person who lied their whole entire existence of existing. I was looking for my my army talk paper, because I have to whip this out. It looks like my first page was ripped off. I want to read something else which I've probably read before. How could the fascists keep their contradictory promises once they got in power? How did their program actually work out? It was easy enough for the fascists to promise all things to all people before they were in power. Once they were actually in power, they could not, of course, keep their contradictory promises. They had intended in advance to break some, and they did break those they had made to the middle classes, the workers, and the farmers. This is just the first paragraph to that one question. So had anybody done their research, basically, they would have known. How did I find out about Army Talk, the number 64 episode? This was written in March 1945. There was another person on another channel who shared this. I looked it up and I began reading it. I'm like, this is a miniature version of Project 2025. Basically, if the authors of Project 2025 came together, I'm sure that they use this and they use other sources in order to plan and try to execute something to take away the rights of people. You had that one particular woman. I'll bring up the video again. Basically, I wanted to screenshot this particular picture. You have this one woman who grew up poor and was saying things like, people that were MAGA took care of her. You have this one man who was talking about how he started watching Fox News so that he could develop a relationship with his father. Then you had this other woman who was talking about this trad wife community and getting involved with the church and basically trying to convince herself that the man in the family is in charge. Now, I'm not sure what his situation was. Clearly, this is the person who started the organization, and he woke up and smelled the coffee about everything that has been going on, because realizing Donald Trump was not going to live out the promises he claimed during his campaign. He was doing none of that. And after a while, one has to say, how many mortgages do I need to take out to supplement for sneakers and watches and phones and campaigns and believing every lie? Oh, we're running out of money. We need you to donate right away. And they will create a ruse of how much they need your money. Now, we all know what I'm going to talk about next. Because we cannot do these videos without talking about Jim Jones. Jim Jones spewed the same thing back in the 70s when he was talking about having a better life and understanding the Black and brown community, because he, as a white man, was treated like the trash of the neighborhood. This was Jim Jones' words. For some reason, people just related to that. And I don't know why. They saw this charismatic person who was going to save them. And he built communities, and he built schools, and he gave people jobs. And from the outside, people will look at that and say, wow, this is amazing. How can I get in on this? Well, Jim Jones was like, yeah, if you want to come in and join the flock, all you have to do is give up everything that you have, sell all of your furniture, sell all of your clothing. If you have a house, sell that, give me all the money, and I'm going to fix everything for you. And I'm going to make it all right. And this is where we are. How long will it take for people to realize you are being scammed? And here's another thing. Now that they talked about that on MSNBC, where is Ashley St. Clair? She has not updated in a few weeks. I have not seen a get ready with me from her. I went on her TikTok account yesterday and I put a comment, ¿Dónde está? Where are you, girl? We're all wondering, did you need a break? Did something happen? Let us know that you're okay, because I have no idea what is going on. So, have you been scammed, and how are you handling that? And I'm being serious. I'm not being mean, but there are some people, I will say this before I close. There are some people who joined this cult because they believe in white supremacy. Are the people that I featured earlier on the MS Now, are they deconstructing? Are they willing to deconstruct and realizing the system of racism and how it benefits them? And what changes are they willing to make in order to make a difference for the next generation? This is Maribel Blue signing off. With all that being said, always remember, be good to yourself, be good to each other. Most importantly, take care of you. Bye, everybody.